Hi everyone, welcome to our 66th video session here. We're here with Desiree Panlilio from Encouraging Teens. But before we get started, let's discuss a little bit about what video sessions are and also what our mission is at Impactionable. So video sessions are a way for our community to get some face-to-face time, whether we're solving challenges or we're just learning about important educational topics in the social impact space. It's part of our bigger mission at Impactionable to create a community that actually does social good work. We don't just say we're doing it, we actually do it. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Shivani, the CEO of Impactionable, based out here in Chicago, working also in public education. Skylar, do you want to go next?
Hi everyone, I'm Skylar. I'm working as a marketing intern at Impactionable, based out in Chicago, and I'm a college senior at the University of Illinois in Champaign.
There we go. Belle, do you want to go next?
So my name is Maribel Rodriguez, and I'm the founder of Love for Immigrants. I've also mentored and facilitated social entrepreneurship with Learn Serve International in the past, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Belle. And Desiree, I want to introduce you. Desiree Panlilio is the founder of Encouraging Teens, a Tampa-based teen life coaching company, working with teens who are seeking and struggling with framing who they are and helping to define a direction for their future. In this video, she'll talk about how important it is to help empower teenagers to overcome the difficult transition from adolescence to adulthood and become critically self-aware members of the community by teaching teens essential skills not taught in school and developing a pathway to success. Teens become self-motivated to succeed and to reach their potential. Thank you so much for your mission, your ideas, Desiree, and we're happy to learn from you. Do you mind start sharing your screen and presenting?
No, I'd love to share my screen. Perfect. First of all, thank you everyone for taking time out of your Sunday. It's always tough to find that time, and I know time is of the essence and we always pick and choose what we do. So thank you for being here. So I have a company called Encouraging Teens, and it's about teen life coaching. And so before I go on with my slides, one of the biggest things I think everyone needs to understand is what is life coaching. More often than not, we think of life coaching as counseling, as therapy, and it's not. It's very different. So life coaching isn't, I don't need a license. So anyone can do that. And I'm working at the future. So I'm looking at empowering whoever it is, specifically for me, teens. I'm working at empowering them, helping them to define success and reach goals into their future. So I'm future focused. I'm not into diagnosing. So as a life coach, I'm not dealing with mental health issues or, anxiety that becomes a point where it's a medical diagnosis. So it's kind of, I say I get to do the fun stuff. I get to encourage and empower teens and help them create the success that they want to see in high school, in college, wherever it is. So I tell people I get to be the fun person in the journey. So let me begin with all these slides to share some information. So what is teen coaching then? Since I've defined what kind of coaching is, what is teen coaching itself? And it's really about helping teenagers find who they are, discover who they are. Teenagers are constantly changing who they are. In the course of a week, they may join 3 or 4 different friend groups, have 3 or 4 different opinions about things. They're trying to figure it out. They're developing critical thinking skills. They're trying to discover them. And a teen coach can really help them do that by asking some critical questions, helping them define who they are, who their values are. And when times get tough for teenagers, it's great if there's that extra person, not just their parent, but another person, and that being the coach, to hold their goals, to hold their values, and remind them how unique they are, how special they are, because every teen today struggles at some point. And it's just nice to have that village and more people around them, surrounding them with that encouragement and positive vibe and positive ways to move forward. So I think that's really important to understand what teen coaching does. Otherwise, we get lost in, thinking it's what we do for adults and help them build their next career. But for teens, it's very much helping them define who they are, help who they're going to be, and help them find that pathway and do more than just what, the academic role is of what schools seem to focus more and more on today. So why a teen life coach? Why would I want to do that over being anything else? And, teenagers are, maturing, they're developing their metacognition, they're understanding who they are. And to me, it is the most exciting and fun time to be part of someone's life. I get to see these teens grow and come into themselves, discover values, be able to articulate their values, not just to themselves, but to their parents, to the community. And once they gain that understanding of their values and their personal mission statement, they kind of grow in self confidence and self esteem. And to me, that's really exciting to be part of that journey to kind of push them in that way, because not all of us get to do that. So I feel really honored to be part of a team, a family's, village to help them do that. Because generally it's really the parents that are looking for a teen life coach. I don't have any, teens reaching out to me and looking and saying, hey, I need a life coach. It's usually a parent coming to me and asking me for help to be part of their team. And I get so excited and I'm so honored that they would let me to be part of their team and to work with their teenager. Because really, what else is more important than our own kids, right? I mean, it's a pretty special opportunity to work with someone's teenager. So I also, with that, teenagers are going through so many transitions. I talked about trying to find that friend group where they belong to 3 different friend groups in a week, but they're also changing from middle school to high school to college, which are huge transitions in their lives. And it's important to have someone else there that understands them, can help them navigate them, know that some of their feelings and apprehensions are having are perfectly normal, but how do you deal with those normal apprehensions? How do you take those trajectories and make sure that you're creating success, that we're going through and making sure that they're achieving the goals that they want? Because it's easy to get lost in those transitions or, trying to find your way. So it's really helpful to have someone else there who understands these transitions and can really help the teenager embrace them, understand them, and grow through them versus, falling behind or, stepping out. We could talk about all of that with college kids in their first year of what creates success for kids. And, one of the big things in college is how do you find friends? It's not just academics, it's how do you become part of that community, that transition. So it's always exciting to be able to help and empower them, to help them find that space and find out who they are in those transitions and to grow them as individuals and young adults to go out into our world and make a difference. It was very exciting. And that kind of brings me to what the mission statement of encouraging teens. And it's working with teens who are seeking and struggling with framing who they are and defining a direction for their future. And it's through fierce conversations. And I always preface fierce conversations are something that I really enjoy. I don't like the word argument because I don't think we should argue with our teenagers. I think we should have those critical skills and help them develop critical thinking skills and have fierce conversations where we ask them to articulate how they're feeling, not argue with them that it's my way or their way, or when I was your age, this is how I solved the problem. So instead of managing our teenagers and giving them the answer and kind of pushing them along, it's really taking that step back and stopping and having, I love the word fierce conversations, encouraging them with their critical thinking skills, encouraging them to articulate how they're feeling and how do I help develop that. So I love having those opportunities with teenagers, helping them develop those critical thinking skills. We also work on goals and creating a space for trust and accountability. Teenagers really sometimes they're learning how to be accountable and responsible, because both of those things, being accountable and responsible, create the success that they want. And how do we encourage that? And it's so important that everyone involved working with teenagers is really helping them to build that. So we do that by creating a safe space during our teen coaching where we can help them do that. That it helps them have that confidence, that determination, that focus to move forward in their pathway and to create that success. And it's exciting to help them write those goals and create those objectives and then obtaining those goals. And, they're small goals because they're teenagers. So it's like looking at each year, each school year. We're not thinking 5-10 year goals because things are too dynamic for teenagers. How they're feeling in 9th grade to 10th grade, to what sport they want to play, to what instrument they want to play changes. So those goals are changing. So a long-term goal for an adult is much different for a teenager. I'd say it's a year or a semester or a school year. That's all they can really focus on at a time. They're just not quite there into that 5-year goal mark. They're not there yet. So I love being in that space with them. So what made me decide on teen life coaching? Because that seems to be a question I get all the time, because people are like, wow, teens, they're that tough that tough time. And yeah, they are a tough time because wow, they have a lot going on. They have so many physiological changes, psychological changes, social changes, lots of just pressure that society puts them on. It starts now in ninth grade. Where are you going to college? What are you going to study? I think most, 14, 15-year-old kids are like, I just want to play the new game. I just want to, play my video game. I just want to go skateboard. It's hard to think about that far in the future. So I just love helping teens kind of master each year. Also, the biggest thing were my two daughters. I watched my daughters growing up and I felt like, wow, I'm doing this great mom stuff, but I'm not really sure that I'm doing all this other stuff. So it was the opportunity to make sure that I was doing all this other stuff with creating fierce conversations and empowering them to be the best that they can be. So what are the ideas encouraging teens focuses on? So we really focus on values, having teens articulate their values, a personal mission statement, which is their call to action, and their goals. And we use the SMART goal system so that they're very specific, because otherwise a goal is just a dream. I'm going to graduate high school. That's great in ninth grade. Let's get through ninth grade. What am I going to do in ninth grade? What am I going to do in my junior year of high school? What are specific goals that I'm going to do? I want to go to college. That's a great goal. What college? What do you want to study when you're, a junior, senior in high school? It's really drilling down and creating goals that create success versus goals that are really just dreams. And how do you find those steps to do that? All of that creates them to be able to self-evaluate who they are, where they're going, and it encourages personal responsibility, personal accountability, and all that creates success. And that follows us through life. Because if you think about it, once you're in the working world, you have to have that personal responsibility and that personal accountability. If you're doing a project, you have to, create your own deadlines. There might be a master deadline that the company gives you to finish a project, but you're kind of responsible and accountable to yourself to creating all those steps. Learning that system early helps create success. It follows you through in your career. It follows you through anything else that you want to do, is just learning how to be responsible and accountable to yourself for your actions. And it also comes into the social space. And am I being personally responsible and accountable to my values of what I feel is the right thing to do? And how do I make sure that I'm doing that in the community? Is it volunteering? Is it whatever it might be in what the teenager feels? So it's making sure that they have all those skill sets as they go forward to be socially a great person in our community, but creating all of that in their life. So what skills do we teach? We teach time management, communication skills, and there's always those 7 things of communication. Friendship skills, basically what is trust, because teenagers all struggle with that. I almost think that's a great topic to have. What is trust? How do you define it? And how to deal with challenging friends and peer pressure, because that seems to be an ongoing thing. How do you exit from that? Or how do you stand up to them? Or where do you find help? It seems to be an ongoing conversation that is really important to have. Study skills and resume writing, because all of those are super important skills to have, and they carry you through college. They then carry you through where study skills now become project managing skills. Is just a different word, and how you allot your time. So study skills and time management start to come together to create success for our teens. And resume writing is something that everyone has to master. And we start with high school resumes, which make college applications easier. And then we kind of go into other stuff once they're in college and connect them up with other resources to help them create the success in finding that first job. So instead of believing teens are challenging, let's encourage them and realize that the teens are facing challenges. Instead of giving teens the same roadmap for a collective path, let's give them the tools and support needed to create their personalized roadmap for the path of their choosing. We're each unique, we each have a separate pathway, and we should each be empowered and encouraged to follow that pathway. And with this approach, encouraging teens turns challenges into opportunities, confusion into conversation, and ambivalence into self-motivation to create clear and focused futures, which is really what we want for all of our teens. As a parent, we want that. As a community at large, we want that. We want our teens to have focus and to be able to know where they're going after high school. How are they going to create success? That is super important. And that is it. That's up for questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can answer everyone's questions, and hopefully everyone's learned something about teen life coaching and wishes that they had it when they were a teenager, because it would have made life in those teen years a little less hectic and stressful.
Thank you so much, Desiree. That was fantastic. Um, I can start and then I would love to hear from others. So I know that with working with teens, like working across different generations can be a challenge. So how do you best relate to teens of, that are now in Gen Z sort of generation?
So, a lot of it is my favorite thing is listening with curiosity, because no matter what age anyone is, we all want to be valued. We all want to be part of something, and we all want to be respected. So to me, it's about listening with curiosity and realizing that I was a teenager, but my teenage experience is very different than the teenagers' experience today. I didn't have the internet. I didn't have 24-hour social media coverage, anything like that. So it's really taking that moment to stop and go, I might have that same apprehension about moving from middle school to high school. We all have that feelings, but how they're experiencing it is their experience. It's not my experience. So it's listening with curiosity and not trying to force my opinion. It's having that growth mindset, realizing that, I always joke with them. It's not about, the person that says, when I walk to school in the snow uphill both ways. Here's how to solve your problem. It isn't that way anymore. It's really about listening and me asking them the questions specific to what they're saying to me. So it's responding to them.
That's a great answer. I mean, the importance of empathy. My parents have told me that story countless amount of times, how they used to walk in like a desert for 3 miles to get to school and all of that. So I appreciate that. Is there anything else from our community members?
Yes, there's one from me. So Desiree, thank you for that presentation about your wonderful work. I was curious about what is one memorable moment that you feel was uh, like a small win for you, or something that, when you're an educator, you live for certain moments. So as a life coach, what's one moment that you would say you live for, that you say, wow, this is like why I do
Gosh, I would have to say that one of my biggest things is when kids really all of a sudden understand what academics mean, and that it's important to go to school every day, and working kind of sometimes with kids that are a little less likely to go to school every day, and finding out at the end of the week when I talk to them that they've gone to school every day, or is really, it sounds like a little thing, but it's a huge win when all of a sudden they start to go, I went to school every day, I turned in my homework, and all of a sudden I got a B on my chemistry test, or I got a B in a class. It is amazing just to see them go, wow, I'm creating my own success. So every time I see one of my teens reach their goals and start to see success, and watching them just go, now I'm taking even more control, now I'm going to try something else, now I'll even go a little more out of my comfort zone to try something. So to me, it's, the little wins are the little things when they reach a goal, or they understand that they are in control. And so I guess that, and I think I see that with just about every teen I work with, because that's my goal. One of my personal goals is to make sure that I'm empowering them and encouraging them and watching them create that success that they want to see. So every time one of my teens kind of has that moment, I get really excited.
Thank you for that. That's really beautiful. I really appreciate that story, and also the fact that you really have a conversation, and like Shivani said, listening with empathy and with curiosity, because we don't do that as much. I think we have a lot of scripts for what we expect them to get out of it and what we need to say, and having sort of that what is it called? Yeah, that philosophy of, by questioning, they'll come up with their own response and think critically. So what's I got a piggyback question, unless someone else has a question.
For it.
Yeah. What's so in addition to the livable, or that moment you live for, what's one reason why you started life coaching with teens? That's usually, I see, for a lot of people in their 20s or their 30s or even just older than that. I remember my uncle, he was like, I don't know, probably like 75 now. He said he actually used to have a class in Colombia that taught him about life purpose. And that helped him think about his career back then. I mean, that was years ago. And that at some point the policy changed and they took that course out of the curriculum. So I'm wondering if you had a similar course in your life, or if you just said like this is missing. I'm wondering what brought you to starting life coaching with teens.
So my biggest reason were my own two daughters. So we were a military family and we kept moving, moving my kids. My oldest went to four different high schools. So, she graduated from one started ninth grade in one high school, graduated as a senior in another high school. And during all this process and watching them, they just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And I'm like, I really think they need to be empowered, and they're girls. And so I'm like, wow, we need to empower them. We need to encourage them. And so, my own kind of dining room table, I started reading, I started pulling material together, and I really started talking to them about what are your values? How do you articulate those values to your new teacher, your new school? How do you and make yourself stand out? How do you make sure that you're getting what you need? Because as a parent, I could go in there and start demanding stuff, but that's not really helping them with their whole life trajectory. So it was empowering them to go in there and kind of articulate what they needed. And I kind of did that. And a couple of parents said, oh my gosh, I love what you're doing. Can I send my son over? Can I send my daughter over? And then all of a sudden we're moving to the Middle East and I'm writing a whole program on college counseling and how to, create this, high school resume and how to create success, and so it was super fun to do. I love doing it, for, our military families and kids when my husband was in the military. And it kind of transitioned out as we left the military that this could be a great opportunity to do for kids, to still do for some military kids, but also there's such a need for kids to be able to articulate what they want. And I think somehow we've lost that, and to kind of explore different opportunities of where they want to go, who they want to be. There are no classes in high school that do that. And we're so busy trying to manage our kids, control them, and create some efficient responses for them to go through a pathway. We forget that they have their own direction, they have their own purpose, and we need to take the time to figure out what that is. We need to really sit down and have those fierce conversations of where do they want to go, what lies ahead for them. They're a unique individual. I can't really manage and put them into a pathway. They need to do their own pathway.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
I had a question about, when you're talking about pathways, what if, I know that you mentioned what the process sort of looks like, what sort of skill sets you end up teaching. What if there's a teenager that comes from an underserved community and they're facing a lot of, a lot of situational sort of factors when comes from, lack of parental guidance or lack of support within their village. How do you direct them throughout your system? And essentially, they might require a little bit more hand holding compared to other teens. So how do you ultimately customize your process, your pathway for each teen?
So you're right. It's a customization for each team because each teen is different. If they were all the same, it'd be so easy, right? But we're not. We're all unique and we each have our own talents. So kids that come from underprivileged or underserved areas, when I'm working with them, it's really about narrowing down and focusing in on values, because one of the biggest things that I feel that they're missing sometimes are those values. And once they start talking about values and they start talking about things that are important to them, and it's usually a broad topic, and then it's a lot of questioning and kind of digging down to finding out what a value is. And all of a sudden you start to find out, they start to go, wow, that's important to me. Wow, okay, my family is important to me. I thought I didn't need my family. I was this cool kid. I could live on the streets, kind of be, but wow, I really do need my family. What does family look like to you now? Because family is whatever you define it to be, right? It doesn't have to be a mom, dad. It can be whoever those mentors are, those people in your village. And so it's really helping them find connections and mentors that they can check in with every day, in the school. And I tell them, and I think you work in public education, we all want our kids to succeed. We want every teenager to succeed. You don't go to work and go, well, I hope he doesn't succeed and drops out. That's not the goal at all, right? So, you can usually connect them with a teacher, a counselor, someone who's like just gonna, check in on them and make sure, every day that they're doing something. And, that makes a huge difference to kids that are underserved. They want someone to care. Again, it comes back to we're human beings and we all want to belong. We all want someone to love us and care about us. And how do you find that for everybody? And sometimes it's creative. I certainly meet with them and I care about every one of them. We do ongoing emails and they can text me at any time. So it's all about creating that, but it's really creating that success because, you create success for one of them. Now it changes their trajectory for their life, but it changes everyone that they encounter too.
Absolutely. Thank you. Does anyone else have other questions they want to ask?
So I wanted to ask, after the basically like throughout the process, do you still keep in touch with them as they're going into that college process, or are you like, do you feel like of a certain kid, like, oh, the coaching has worked, they're ready to go on their own? Do you leave them on their own, or do you constantly check up on them?
So my ultimate goal of coaching and any life coach, and I can't speak for any of them, my ultimate goal is to work myself out of a job for each and every teenager, right? That's my ultimate goal, is that they kind of gain that independence. I do follow a lot of my kids into college, and I have to say it's usually for the first year, maybe the first and second year. I have a couple that are in their third year and getting ready to graduate. And sometimes the focus shifts, all of a sudden it becomes like creating LinkedIn accounts. How do we create a real professional resume? What sources are out there, directing them to their own college resources, because every college has so many resources. And sometimes for first generation kids going to college, you have no idea what resources there are. So it's kind of me asking those questions of what did you ask for? How can you get help? Ask for help. And so I find that really exciting. So I work with them less and less. There's weekly coaching. So a lot of my college kids, I see them every semester, if that kind of makes sense. I kind of see them at the beginning of every semester. Right now with some of them in their second and third year of college, we did a little bit more work together because they were looking at internships. So we did interviewing skills, we did LinkedIn accounts, we did, how do you create that resume? How do you network? What do you say in an interview? Because you can't really just go, you have to engage. You're interviewing with people that are my age, not, or a little bit younger, that you're not interviewing with your peers. So the language has to change. You can't wear a t-shirt that's dirty. We have to, wear a clean shirt. It sounds crazy, but it's kind of reminding and going through all those things. And if you have no one to tell you, you're not going to do them. So I still talk to them in college, and it's just a different process, different things that we talk about. And eventually they kind of go out. I have a couple that have finished college and are working. And I personally just get emails, like Christmas cards and emails that tell me how they're doing. And that's really, they're kind of like my collection of kids that just let me know how they're doing, which is exciting too. I love knowing that success is continuing for them.
That's awesome, Desiree. And I think that was that was a really good question to ask, primarily because you're right. The point of a social enterprise is to get yourself out of that job. You've done your job and you want to be out of business because you've ultimately solved that challenge. So what do the next, 2 to 5 years look like for you? What does the future look like for you? And what sort of goals would you like to accomplish moving forward?
I would really love to be able to be in the public school systems. I have a 4-week program where it's really focuses on values, personal mission statement, goals, and then role models, and trying to get kids to connect to not just the big role model that's famous, but who in your community can be a role model and a mentor, and kind of connecting them and making that. I would love to be in the public school system and having kids starting to learn to articulate their values, learning that they have intrinsic value, that they are super important. Because I think somehow we're losing that. We're very busy into managing kids and being efficient with teenagers. We're not so good at stopping and realizing how unique and what an opportunity it is to have these great conversations and encouraging their individuality and encouraging them to question the system so that we change the system and make it better. So I would love to be able to be more into the public school systems, more into the kids that are, where they require needs, more into, where we do restorative justice work. I would love to be in all of those avenues where there's that opportunity to teach values, which then, create personal responsibility, create personal accountability, and create success for these teens. Because sometimes knowing that you are enough as a person is really a valuable tool.
Yes, absolutely. And are you working with any partners or any organizations right now?
I work with Sarasota Teen Court, which is where they do restorative justice. I run my program, so that's very exciting. I'm looking at trying to expand that and to work with other areas. I work with a lot of private clients, which is really exciting, from, all over the country pretty much, especially as they've gone off to college, from, New Mexico to Washington, D.C. to all over the place, Wisconsin, wherever they've gone. I've had the opportunity to kind of keep touch with them, even in Tampa and the great schools that we have here in Florida. So it's the opportunity to work with them wherever they are.
Absolutely. And you spoke about, looking to change the system. What does the system look like currently, and what are you looking to change about it?
So I feel like the system is not listening to teens. I think, I think Maribel talked about when her uncle went to Columbia, they talked about kind of figuring out who you are. And I think we need to start that process earlier. I think we need to start trying to figure out who am I, and how do I empower you? How do I encourage you? And whether you're the bully or the person being bullied, I think, if you think about schools like that, both of them have issues and concerns. And if we could get in the schools earlier and start empowering them and making them feel that like a valued member, would that minimize some of that? It would be interesting to do that, because I think some of it is you want to belong, you want to be part of a tribe, you want to be part of a village, you want to be respected and loved. And I know that if the village ran away from, the lion, that you wouldn't be left in the den for the lion to eat. You want to know that everyone's kind of there supporting you. So I would like to be able to start that process earlier. I think, teenagers really need it. I feel like a lot of teens and, are just disenfranchised. They're trying to figure out how do they belong. And I think we're with social media, there's an image that's being created that I'm not really sure is realistic. And I'd really love to break down that barrier and let them know that them as an individual, who they are enough.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, it seems like that transition, especially from, it seems like you're speaking about the village side, the collaboration, support side of things. But then when you do transition into the working world, or when you even transition into applying for colleges, right? It's a very competitive process. And we've been taught that from a very early age that, oh, you need to be at the top. You need to be at the top in order to succeed, whether it's in school, whether it's with getting accepted to the right college, whether it's getting that next position. So how do you suggest we reconcile the two, with the community side, the collaboration side of the system, and then also this competitive nature that we have been taught from a very young age?
Yeah, I actually struggle with that all the time, because you're right. May 1st just passed, right? So all the kids, all my high school kids were, saying which college they were going to and putting it on social media and stuff. And my thing is, sometimes, there's enough success for everybody. Everybody has success. It's just, what is that success for you? Shivani's success is very different than my success, which is different than Skylar's success. How do we embrace that and encourage that? And you're right, we do create this huge competitive thing with college applications and applying and having to be the top of the class rank and stuff. I know a lot of schools are getting rid of class rank just because that, takes one piece of the pie away, but we can all be honest, teenagers know exactly where they rank in class. They know if they're in the top 10, the bottom 10. They know if, oh, I'm average, I'm in the middle. Teens know exactly where they are. I guess one of the nice things is, by taking it out, it's not being pushed on them constantly. I guess that's one of the nice things. I don't know how we how we take away that huge competitive nature, that we are so competitive instead of trying to raise each other up and pull each other together. How do I make it better so that, you know, Shivani gets a chance at being as successful as she can? How can I empower that and encourage that? And I don't know how we change that mindset. That's a personal mindset that I have. I'd also say it's a mindset that my dad was really big on bringing up with me. My dad was First Nations in Canada. So, and he was French Canadian. And, it was all about, whether you want to, realize it or not, there was some, we were definitely the minority. So how do you always pull each other up? And it was always about, how do we encourage each other? How do I make sure that my cousins are just as successful? How do I make sure we're all moving forward? Because, if we're all moving forward, we're just making society better, right? Like, we're improving everybody, we're improving all of us. And I don't know how we change that mindset. I think it's just been so embedded in our culture over the years to be competitive. And it's kind of like, it's all about me. I'm not worried about you. And I think about different programs where they change that mindset. And how do you make it about not just you? Do you connect someone and make them responsible for someone else so that their success is kind of tied to someone else? I don't know how we do that in high school. If we create mentors where, a senior's mentoring, a 10th grader to kind of show them the ropes. How do we do that? I don't know. I think it'd be an interesting opportunity to get some really brilliant people together and figure out, how do we change that mindset? Because the mindset doesn't just start with the kids in college, it starts with parents. Because I think parents and our culture as a whole is a driving force between that competition. Because, parents, good, bad, and ugly. I am a parent, and I always have to check myself. We're very quick to post, our kid just got in, a dramatic example, Harvard, Yale, and Columbia. My kid's amazing, but your kid's best friend just didn't get into anything. So there, you just created competition, dissension. How do we stop that? How do we just enjoy the moment? I think, when I got into college, it wasn't plastered on social media. My dad and, my mom and dad were just like, we're super proud of you, way to go. What's next? It was kind of like a family moment. So sometimes I feel like we've created this competition through social media.
It's interesting you say social media sort of emphasize this competitive nature. That's like a topic and a discussion of its own. I think that's such a rich and heavy topic to discuss.
It would be a great topic to have a discussion with, because if you think about teens, it's just, they see that perfect life, right? That's all they post, those perfect Instagram poses. No teen posts on there, I just bombed my chem test and got an F, right? No teen does that. No teen posts that they just, those, whatever pose it is, everything is perfect. There's no room, margin for error or growth. So yeah, I think it's, we're so busy trying to attain that perfection, and that level, it creates a competition in and of itself. And I don't know how we fix it. I wish I knew.
Can I chip in on that one? I think if we had, I think it's a larger systemic social issue. Like, I feel like kids and children and youth are just a reflection of our society, and they're trying to, as they're finding themselves, I think they actually start very unique. I mean, a child is very unique when they're younger, but then they start feeling the pressure of society, and society either beats them down and they start to do whatever everyone else is doing, or the more courageous ones, which are the few, because we all struggle with courage, are the ones who are probably doing something different. But it starts at a mass societal level. If in the news there weren't these, and not just in the news, in reality, these instances where just that case where this coach was getting some high school students into privileged colleges and this is the conversation about privilege and power and race in the United States and even globally. People wouldn't have to feel that pressure. People who come from disenfranchised backgrounds, whether that's class backgrounds, whether that's racial upmake of America, whatever that is, or ethnic groups, and African Americans, Indigenous Americans, and to some extent, Latinx people being on the bottom of that, they're just trying to catch up, right? So there's already this game being played by people with privilege, and they're competitive with each other, and they're just like, I just want to get that pie, so I can have a dignified life. And so yeah, I think it has to change at the the equity piece has to matter, and desegregation has to happen again. I've been a substitute teacher in DC, and there's still segregation, and I will say that out loud. And DC probably won't want to admit it because they want to be a model, but I've been to schools, many different schools, and there's still the only one that's actually working with a diverse group integrative classroom is Capital City. So we're still dealing with 1960 issues. And in some ways we move forward, like when I was saying with my uncle, he had that class in high school. And then in some ways we move backwards, right? With purpose, right? Why don't we want to talk about purpose in classrooms and values and having youth at the forefront of changing their lives? Because we want to control people. I mean, the whole education system in some degree is about, what we want for them, because we're trying to fight, a national fight with other bigger superpowers. So we need everyone to just, be really good at performing one function. So this doesn't fit in with what the country at a larger, higher level is trying to do. So this is I think, the real issue. And I don't know how to change that. It breaks my heart, but I do know that there are programs like yours, and like there's one in DC that works in educational equity that I really like, critical exposure. There's one that I work with, Learn Serve, they work on social change. And I think this like massive partnership and allyship with youth organizations, and they're all empowering youth, will really help bring that shift forward, and together we can decide what we want to do with our lives as opposed to fitting in the box that was constructed for us.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's all about, I try to tell parents it's and everything, we're about managing, controlling, and efficiency. We're not about having those great conversations of direction, purpose, what do you want to do? We're all about how do we manage efficiency and control the situation to go this way, instead of creating all these other opportunities and having those discussions. And I don't know how we change that. I wish I could change it. I would, I love working with the teens that I work with and helping them be empowered and making choices based on what their values are and what their personal mission statement is. And, it's always tough when, they come up with this personal mission statement and all of a sudden they've been in engineering for 3 years and they really realize that maybe engineering isn't what they want to do after 3 years of college, and maybe it really is something else. And it's having that discussion that, they've drudged through it because, again, it was managing, control, and efficiency instead of purpose of what they wanted to do. But I don't know how we do that, because we're about being competitive and doing, different things instead of being, how do we raise everyone up in their own purpose?
And the pandemic probably made it worse, because that really showed us the importance of survival and put some in the back burner some of these important conversations, because they're secondary to our basic needs versus like shelter and food and just surviving. And so it's a lot there.
Well, exactly. I think, definitely COVID and the pandemic and having kids all being on Zoom calls, and that, I think it became a whole different set of, concerns of just getting the kids through the day. Because I don't think any kid was ever meant to sit in front of a Zoom call for 8 hours. I mean, I think that's, that was hard enough as adults. And, we're growing adults having Zoom calls and working with, and I do work with kids with Zoom, and I've done that with my college kids for a while. But having kids come in at the end of the day and going, I'm so tired. I'm tired of talking to people on Zoom. I want to be with my friends. So I think you're right. The pandemic created a whole host of other concerns and factors and things that we're going to have to address over the next few years.
Yeah, and even how you think about your future, right? Because when you live through a pandemic like this, some youth may be experiencing homelessness, since people are kicked out, and some laws are there to protect them in some states, but not all. And so then the conversation becomes, I saw, if I chose a path of purpose, some people could not get through it during the pandemic. or I saw even when people were focused on survival, that even wasn't enough. So I really have to just focus on surviving. So what's going to make money? And then that becomes sort of this back in the state of survival and thinking about the short term as opposed to, can I stay in this job for 30 years, 20 years, 10 years and still be a happy human being and feeling like I'm doing something intentional and purposeful for my community. And that comes, I think that will be at the back burner, and hopefully people will learn to, and you're there too, and people like you, to learn to manage both. Like, how can you survive and at the same time live a life of purpose and of conviction to your values? And it's a lot.
And we need to start, and we need to start in middle and high school having those conversations, because that's how you get it. How do you give back? What do you give back? And I think, having values and having a teenager say, well, I value community. What does community mean? How do you do that? And being able to have that conversation and go, so, okay, so where could you volunteer? What would your passion be to volunteer? And, having that opportunity to have that conversation changes the direction. And, each kid you change, I feel like each kid that we have I get to have that conversation with, and we work through those systems, it changes their trajectory, but then it changes everyone that they encounter, because then they get to encourage other people to follow suit with them, if that makes sense. Peer pressure with teenagers is a powerful thing. And if one person's doing something that looks kind of cool, then someone else might want to do it. So it's kind of trying to shift it that way.
And to your later point was like mentoring a younger person, building that empathy for, I want to see this younger person that I'm guiding do well with me as I'm moving up, I'm helping build. I think there's a program called Big Brother and Big Sister. Maybe they have a sister one too, but it's that same idea of, I'm gonna teach someone else at a younger level, and together we're gonna move up together. And then they form that relationship through time, and that's it. It's especially, I think, with disenfranchised communities like mine, and others. Like, there's this lady who was very difficult with her daughter, and she was driving her kid crazy. But of course, we couldn't really tell her. I was substituting leads for the time, and I was very confused. I said, "She's 5. Let her be a kid." But that's because I was privileged in one way, in a very ghetto neighborhood. I was privileged though, because I didn't have that pressure at 5. I was able to play all the time I wanted to. And she couldn't, like, she had to be perfect. But it's because her mom is, she's a professional adult. She comes from the South, and she's African American. And she said, and she's like in her 40s, so she's an older mom for her daughter. So she lived through some difficulties. And she said, I know what life is like as a Black woman, and she needs to do better than the average American in order to just have the same position. So she's instilling her perfectionism, but it's because the society demands it. And through our lived experience, we've seen it. How many times did Obama have to be super excellent, even with articulating, even at times where people were very negative? And then you have a different kind of president who's just totally reckless, but the news and society doesn't seem to be at shock. So it's like, you have to be perfect. And I lived through that too. You have to be very close to perfect to even be considered. And so that becomes a problem. And then you're trying to manage 2 different things. Like, you, as a young person, as a teen, you want to be cool. And so what's cool maybe look whatever, maybe a little rustic. But then the professional world tell you professional looks very different. And so there's a lot to manage there. It's a whole lot.
It is hard to be a teenager. It is hard to, you're right. And that's why, I joke, but there are days when teenagers will belong to 3 different friend groups, right? Here's them as one friend group. Oh, they're not quite, I'm not cool enough for them, or wow, there's something not right about them. And sometimes they don't understand what's not right about them, right? They're like, oh, that's not a right group for me. Then they move to another group, and then to another group. And I feel that if you could just come in and work with values and start having teens develop values and understand, then when they look at that group, you could say whatever, they're the druggy group, whatever you want to call them. There could be, that is not a value that I hold important to me, or they're the group that skips school. That's not a value. I value my education. I value something else. But then they also have the ability to articulate that. once they're understanding their values and their personal mission statement, is being able to articulate that. And maybe they won't change. Maybe there's 10 kids in that group. Maybe they're not going to change 10 kids. But what if when that one person left that group, they took one kid with them? Wow. Like, to me, that's just mind blowing, right? I'm leaving this group that skipped school, whatever it is. I just don't, that's not a value. But there's one kid that was kind of sitting on the fence going, I don't know why this group doesn't matter, but they're kind of cool. And all of a sudden this person articulates it and they're like, oh, well, now I'm going to come with you. Wow, that one kid that we've empowered with learning, that I've worked with, that's able to articulate their values and personal mission statement and being able to feel self-confident enough to kind of call a group out, takes one person with them. Indirectly, I've just changed two people's lives, and I can't change everyone, but I feel like if I change a little bit, then maybe over time, and not my lifetime, but maybe things will change. Like, empowering and changing people to, love, encourage each other just to do the best that each person and individual can do.
I think that's what it is in education. It's not about quantity of people, but it's about quality, and it's about the depth of which you can get, how you can help that individual person. That's something that's different that you don't see across many other sectors other than education, because it's enriching and ultimately it's very, experiential compared to other sectors. Um, I do, I know that we have to wrap up. We're getting at time right now, but I do want to ask Desiree, what are some of the asks that you have from our community so we can help you in your individual venture?
I would just say, if you happen to come across an organization or an opportunity, I'm still trying to grow. So I'd love to grow my business. I'd love to get my mission out there. I would love to be in more areas and helping more teens and just kind of change the way things are going, helping them, empower other teens in other areas. So if there's an opportunity to do that, I would, share my business information. I would love to have a conversation with anyone at any opportunity.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to connect later after this.
Perfect. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll send an email to everyone who's joined, and please do connect after this call. That's the purpose of these video sessions. And I want to thank you, Desiree, for, your mission, your heart, your ideas, your brain, everything that comes with who you are and your purpose. And I know that your village and the students that you work with, I'm sure, appreciate that as well. Thank you for making the world better in the way that you do. We really appreciate you sharing your mission with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I want to give some, resources for everyone to follow. Please do check out some social impact purpose-driven jobs on our job portal. Sign up for our newsletter to stay updated. And please tell your friends and family to join, whether it's our Facebook group, whether it's our newsletter, or just join one of our video sessions. We would love to see more folks doing good work in their individual communities, no matter their backgrounds. Just bring your ideas and we would love to have you. Awesome. Thank you so much, Desiree. And please look out for an email for us so you and Maribel can connect after the call as well. But thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Have a great one.
Thank you. Have a great day.